8 reasons that led to the fall of the Roman Empire. Rome, or specifically Western Rome, is one of the first and greatest empires in human history. Its territory stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the Euphrates River in the Middle East. But no matter how powerful it was, this empire could not escape the laws of nature. The fall of the Roman Empire has profoundly changed world history. But do you know the real reasons that led to the fall of this empire? Let's find out in this article. The invasion of barbarian tribes. A popular theory is that the fall of the Roman Empire was due to a series of military losses to external forces. Over the centuries, Rome had to deal with Germanic tribes, and in the 300s, groups of barbarians, also known as the Huns, such as the Goths, penetrated deep into the territory of the Roman Empire. Although Rome suppressed the uprising of the Germans in the late 4th century, in 410, Visigoth king Alaric succeeded in sacking the city of Rome. In the following decades, the Roman Empire faced constant threats from outside, and in 455, Rome was attacked again, this time by marauders. Finally, in 476, the Germanic leader Odoacer organized a rebellion and deposed Emperor Romulus Augustulus. From then on, there was no longer any Roman emperor who could rule the autonomous empire, and many believe that 476 can be considered the year when Western Rome received a fatal blow. Economic difficulties and excessive dependence on slave labor. In fact, Rome faced collapse from both inside and outside. Internally, there was a severe financial crisis, constant wars, and excessive spending on the military that depleted the empire's treasury. This led to taxation, inflation, and increasing wealth gap. To avoid high taxes, the wealthy left the cities and moved to the countryside to create independent settlements. Furthermore, the empire was constantly facing a labor shortage. Their economy relied entirely on slaves working in the fields and in the crafts industry. The military power of Rome helped them have additional labor force from new territories, but when the territorial expansion stalled in the 2nd century, the supply of slaves and war booty of Rome ran out. In the 5th century, another issue arose when marauding forces declared sovereignty in North Africa and began plundering the empire's trade routes. As a result, the economy declined, production, trade, and agriculture declined. Eventually, the empire lost its power in Europe. The rise of the Eastern Roman Empire. In the late 3rd century, Emperor Diocletian decided to divide the empire into 2 parts, the western part with Milan as its center, and the eastern part with Byzantium as its center, later becoming Constantinople. This decision aimed to make it easier for the empire to manage, but over time, the 2 parts became increasingly separate. The East and West could not effectively cooperate to deal with external threats, and often clashed over resources and military assistance. As the territory expanded, the eastern part of the empire primarily spoke Greek and became wealthier, while the western part spoke Latin and gradually fell into an economic crisis. Most importantly, the strength of the Eastern Empire made the invasions of the barbarian tribes target the West. Emperors like Constantine invested a lot of money and manpower to protect and fortify the city of Constantinople. But Italy and the city of Rome did not do this, making them more vulnerable to attacks. The political structure in the West finally collapsed in the 5th century, while the Eastern Empire continued to exist for over 1,000 more years before being conquered by the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century. Excessive expansion and military costs. In its heyday, the Roman Empire covered a vast territory from the Atlantic Ocean to the Euphrates River in the Middle East. However, their rapid expansion also posed a risk of the collapse of this empire. With such a large territory to manage, the empire faced difficulties in organizing administration and logistics. Although they had an excellent road system, communication was not fast and efficient enough to manage such a vast territory. Rome also struggled to gather enough armies and resources to defend their borders from local uprisings and attacks from outside. In the 2nd century, Emperor Hadrian even had to build his famous wall in England just to stop the enemy. When many resources were used to maintain the empire's military, technological advances would slow down, and Rome's civilian infrastructure began to deteriorate. Corruption and political instability. If the vast scale of Rome posed difficulties in governance, then ineffective and inconsistent leadership only exacerbated the problem. During the tumultuous period of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, becoming a Roman emperor was extremely dangerous, almost akin to a death sentence. Civil wars pushed the empire into a state of chaos, and within a span of less than 75 years, over 20 individuals ascended to the imperial throne, often after assassinating their predecessors. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's bodyguards, assassinated and installed new kings at will. They even auctioned off the position to the highest bidder. The political decay also spread to the Roman Senate, or the Senate. Due to corruption and their own control, they could not restrain the excesses of the emperors. As the situation worsened, the trust of the people weakened, and many Roman citizens lost faith in this regime. The emergence of the Huns. The attacks of the Huns on the city of Rome, in part, were the result of the mass migrations following the Hunnic invasions of Europe in the late 4th century. When Hunnic warriors threatened all of northern Europe, they pushed many Germanic tribes to the borders of the Roman Empire. The Romans, albeit reluctantly, allowed members of the Visigoth tribe to cross the Danube River and seek refuge here, but they treated these others brutally. According to historian Ammianus Marcellinus, Roman officials even forced starving Goths to sell their children as slaves in exchange for dog meat. This brutal treatment created a dangerous enemy right on their doorstep. When the oppression became unbearable, the Goths revolted and ultimately defeated the Roman army, killing the Eastern Emperor Valens in the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD. The decline of Rome led to the negotiation of a fragile peace agreement with the Huns. However, this truce was broken in 410 when the Gothic king Alaric advanced westward and attacked the city of Rome. As the Western Empire weakened, Germanic tribes such as the Vandals and Saxons had the opportunity to invade their borders and occupy England, Western France, and North Africa. Christianity and the disappearance of traditional values. The decline of the Roman Empire is related to the spread of Christianity, and some believe that the emergence of a new religion contributed to the empire's downfall. In 313, the Edict of Milan legalized Christianity, and later in 380, it became the official state religion. These edicts ended centuries of persecution against Christians, but may have weakened the traditional value system of Rome. Christianity replaced the Roman pantheon, in which the emperor was seen as a divine figure. Instead, they focused on worshiping a single supreme deity. Popes and church leaders increasingly played a more significant role in politics, making the management of the empire more complex. 18th century historian Edward Gibbon put forth a famous theory about the influence of Christianity on the fall of the Roman Empire. However, this viewpoint has received much criticism. While the spread of Christianity may have played a minor role in changing the beliefs of Roman citizens, most modern scholars believe that this impact was not as significant as factors such as military, economic, and administrative issues. The decline of the Roman legions. Throughout much of its history, the Roman army was the envy of the ancient world. They were one of the most powerful military forces in history. But during the decline, changes began to appear in the structure of the army. Conscription from Roman citizens became difficult. Therefore, emperors like Diocletian and Constantine began recruiting foreign soldiers to strengthen their armies. The composition of the army eventually became more diverse, with the emergence of Germanic-origin Goths and other barbarian tribes, to the point where the Romans began calling them barbarus in Latin, instead of soldiers. Although these Germanic soldiers were often known as fierce warriors, they often lacked loyalty to the Roman Empire. Germanic officials who desired power often overthrew their Roman leaders. In fact, many barbarians were awarded medals and even participated in the plunder of Rome and the overthrow of the Western Roman Empire later on.